Hello and welcome to Balkans Debrief. I'm Ilva Tare, resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Europe Center. Today we will discuss a critical moment in Serbia's history. The country has been rocked by seismic student-led protests, an uprising ignited by the devastating collapse at Novi Sad's central train station, a tragedy that claimed 15 lives and is widely attributed to government corruption and negligence. What began as an outpouring of grief has now transformed into a powerful nationwide movement, forcing the resignation of Prime Minister Vučević and even earning Serbian students a nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize. But the battle isn't just unfolding in the streets, it's playing out in the media as well. How is the Serbian media, the journalists, covering these demonstrations? What does this movement reveal about media freedom in Serbia? To break it all down, I'm joined by two leading media voices, Igor Božić, news director at TVN1, and Marko Prelević from Nedeljnik, one of Serbia's most influential weekly news magazines. So the student protest, and we will discuss how media is covering this, but they have drawn an extraordinary wave of solidarity from all corners of Serbia's society. What is fueling this support, Igor, in your view? Does it signal a deeper shift in Serbians' public consciousness?
It's quite extraordinary how public actually supports students in this moment. And what we can see, it's very unusual because students start blockades of the faculties around 2.5 months ago. And it started to spread all over the Serbia. So now what we can see, it's not only just on the mainstream Western media that you can see the crowds of the people that are going together with the students, but also in very small places like, Bela Palanka, Trgovište, Surdulica. It's very small towns and places around Serbia that you can see hundreds, somewhere even 1,000 people on the street just out of nowhere. We recorded, for example, last Friday in Belgrade, traffic were blocked on 37 places on various time during the day. So it's extraordinary that you can see people organized by themselves on a social networks or some other groups and just getting out on the street, block the roads and showing the support to the students and their demands. It's something unusual, and since I've been covering the student protest during the 90s, even at that time during the Milošević regime, we didn't see at that time such a big support and actually no fear with the people who are supporting students.
Marko, what do you think? What is driving the protests from the students and the citizens that are joining them?
I think one of the main points is there's a lot of anger, I think, that's been boiling in Serbia because of corruption, because of nepotism, because of connections to mafia. But there's also solidarity, and I think what students managed to do is raise their voice and give the voice to regular people who are now in throngs, coming to support their cause. And you could see, I think Igor's television did a fantastic job. Students had organized a march from Belgrade to Novi Sad, to mark 3 months of this tragic accident, of this tragedy, so, of course. And everywhere they went, in smaller cities, in smaller towns, in villages, people were coming out and greeting them like liberators. And that is something that has never happened here during the past 13 years. That is something that I think took many of us by surprise, and of course took the government by surprise. And these students are saying, they're saying no to corruption, they're saying no to nepotism, they're talking to their parents, they're talking to their grandparents, they're simply doing something that hasn't been done before, and I don't think even during the 90s, as Igor mentioned, I think this is something special. This is something different, and this is something that has the potential not only to change Serbia, but maybe to give the voice also to other people in other countries, especially young people.
So, Igor, what do protesters want? Unlike other protests before, they don't have any political banners or flags that during these protests, which would have been used from the government and the regime to discredit them, as it has happened in the past. What are they asking for, and how likely is that their voices will bring real change this time around?
Well, they are asking for justice on the first place, and from institutions to start to do their job. They are calling for changing the system because they think the system is not only corrupt, but it's widespread. The network of political influence in every sphere of people's life. And that is something that they want to change. In changing of that scheme that is widespread all over Serbia, and not only in Serbia, it's some kind of nepotism, so-called nepotism between the political structures, and that is why they're trying to be away from political parties in this process of changing Serbia. I can tell that because they will not be satisfied with the resignation of Prime Minister or resignation of the mayor of Novi Sad, where the tragedy accident happened. But they want to push judges, prosecutors, all the people who are in charge to start to do their job on a right way with no political influence. I don't see that the current regime is actually understanding that, because even though they showed message to the president that he's not the one who have to tell and have to answer on their demands, he's keep trying to make a contact with them, try to call them on a negotiation, and they're refusing to do that from a logical reason.
It's okay. You're working. You have to cover, Marko. But who are the protests leading the movement? Do they have a leader? How come this protest is even though it's leaderless in a way, they have this unique challenge now to not only demand accountability, but also how the society is reacting, how the regime is reacting towards them. Do you think that the fact that the students don't have leader and they are not talking even to the opposition parties in Serbia, this needs to be addressed as an issue, or will it affect the final impact of the protest?
Yeah, it's a conundrum, but I cannot say that this protest took us by surprise per se, because there's always someone protesting in Serbia. But from the first moment on, you could see that this is a wholly different story. You could see from the way that the students themselves organized. You can see that it's something different, the way that they distance themselves from the opposition parties. And I can tell you from the media point of view, when the opposition parties are organizing any kind of protests or demonstrations, you can easily get them to come in front of a camera or a microphone. But students took matters into their own head. They organized the assemblies, they occupied the campuses, and they said, well, we're going to do things differently. We will delegate people who will talk to media, and this is something that is completely new. This is a grassroots movement that's really, I don't think that there's been anything like this in Serbia. And what Igor said, they do have very, very precise objectives. On one hand, on the other hand, they are young, so they are, of course, idealistic, and they garner it with a sense of humor. They do something, they do everything differently. So this is something that also people were reacting to, and I think one of the biggest factors that the student movement is so strong is the the response of the government, which has been bordering on schizophrenic for a while, because you have, on the one hand, you have president who is saying, well, we need to hear these students, we need to hear these young people, and at the very same night or at the very same hour, you have thugs from his ruling party beating up students or driving cars through the student blockades. So this is something also that people responded to, and what was meant to quell these protests actually worked out in their favor. And I think one of the challenges was to report on what the students are doing, but also the challenge was to report on what the government is doing. And one, as well as Nedeljnik, we can't really get the ministers, we can't really get the prime minister to talk to us, because they just refuse to do so. So it's something completely different, and you do have these government tabloids that are really controlled from one source, and they're controlled either from the presidency or from the office of prime minister. And every time that we had some protests here, they would target the organizers. So the students said, well, what if we do not have prominent organizers? What if it's the assemblies that vote for something or against something? And I think that also made it much more difficult for the government to quell these protests.
Yeah, they don't have a leader. They don't have leaders. They are changing people who we can interview on every single day. And that is the reason why they cannot target them on an everyday level. They try to do that. They try to do that on many times when they find students. I will tell you one example. They found a student who has a Croatian passport, and they try to equalize that as a kind of a Croatian uprising in Serbia, which is nonsense, and that lie that's been never take the publicity in Serbia, but that's the way how they're doing on an everyday level.
Yeah,
so it didn't stick, the fact that they mentioned the Croatian potential interference.
They mentioned the NATO, they mentioned the color revolutions. They mentioned some other, foreign governments interfering with the students' minds, and nothing. It's like they're trying to stick something, and nothing happens, and they were growing more and more confused, I think, and especially because you can see now, and the students can see that all the tabloid headlines are originating from one place. They're all the same. Today they have a headline that the opposition is taking over protests. Yesterday they had that the students are paid by the foreign governments to mess with our economy or stuff like that. But I think they're what they're doing and how they are organizing themselves with the social media. They're very media savvy. They have, you can have. For example, we had today the great students from Faculty of Dramatic Arts, the directors and movie makers. They made another great video clip. Then you have the students from the Faculty of Civil Engineering who will look into the available data regarding the canopy and the tragedy. Then you will have students from journalism students who will do live broadcasts of their protests. So they're all doing their part, but they're maintaining this. It's not anonymity per se. It's more like we're all in this together.
And here I want to continue a little bit, talk more about how the media is covering. I was reading this morning, the New York Times highlighted how Serbian state media now has shifted their stance, spotlighting the protest after initially ignoring them. What does this mean for the future of media freedom in Serbia, Igor? Are you optimistic that this protest will change things for media in Serbia?
No, I'm not optimistic. I mean, what you can see, probably New York Times thought about RTS, which is a public service, and their, let's say, first time shifting in towards the real news, and they been slapped immediately that evening from SNS. What they did, they started their main news cast that night with a live report from Novi Sad, where the protests were going on. And President Vučić wasn't our first news, like he is always on RTS. Just the day before they started the news program, even though we had a huge demonstration all over Serbia, they started news with the Instagram post from Aleksandar Vučić on the first place, which is absolutely not journalistic. So one day they did it, and they've been immediately slapped from SNS in direction that they're all going to be punished for that, or that we can hear even Vučić on a rally saying, I agree that RTS is doing a bad job. I'm agreed that we should close them down. So he is actually showing the muscles and showing a way to all other pro-regime media, which is almost 90% media in this country, that they don't need to be funny. I mean funny in a terms of joking and playing a journalism. In this situation, they have to be loyal to him and his regime. And I don't see any kind of courage and strength into those media, and even in the public service, that they can shift towards the professionalism in this situation.
Marko, do you have the same reading, or you are more optimistic?
Yeah, well, I think we as the independent media, I think we are bracing for even more pressure. And they have a history of it, and we know that the government has already tried everything they can to suppress the independent media. For example, in Nedeljnik, we can never count on any advertisers that are from state-owned companies, which is a really big thing in Serbia, because most of the really valuable companies are state-owned, and they simply won't advertise, and they don't care that we are the most popular magazine, or that N1 is the most popular TV network or stuff like that. They just don't care. So, but that wasn't enough. So now you do have this pressure even on private companies, and I think several major international and domestic Serbian companies that with thousands and thousands of employees that voice their support in one way or another for the student cause were also targeted. And even if they just supported this general strike that students called for, or just because a person from a management would show up or like an Instagram post or something like that. So oh, God forbid, be at the demonstrations. So you had, I'll give you just one example. You had this huge Italian company whose CEO was actually at the protests, and he was actually targeted and doxxed by the pro-government tabloids just for being there, and there was several articles about him and his company. So now this, now this person will be like, should I think about advertising? Should I think about independent media? Should I think about anything else? When the atmosphere is like that. So I think we're bracing ourselves to be even worse, and it's anyone's guess what's going to happen. And students know that it's that's why they didn't care about the resignation of the prime minister. Students know that it's about one person and what's inside his head, and it's a dangerous thing to have in a country, and it's even more dangerous because he has shown that the President Vučić has shown time and time again that he doesn't really like independent media.
But meanwhile, the nomination of the Serbian students, protesters for the Nobel Peace Prize, was extraordinary. How did the media cover this story, Igor?
Well, of course, the independent media publish it, but you can see even on the public service information about that, but nothing more than that. Also, some kind of making jokes on a strongholds of pro-regime media with the tabloids, like it's a joke, it's not serious, it's not possible, etc. But I think that kind of nomination gave a strength to the students who are on the streets. We've seen a few posters on the rally in Novi Sad in connection with this nomination. But anyhow, I don't think that the students are really care about that in this situation, because they know that is a long way ahead for taking this situation into the finish. Because it's only a beginning, and it's only a beginning of cracking the iceberg in a Vučić regime here.
There's some cracks showing, and while students maybe do not care about the Nobel Peace Prize nomination, they do care when somebody supports them and somebody sends them message around the world. And just this weekend we had the prominent artist Marina Abramović, who said that students should be supported. We had Madonna, of all people, posting the photo of rally in Novi Sad, and also the tennis champion who is here, the champion of the people, not just tennis, and Olympic champion Novak Djokovic, who is openly supporting students. And this is how they get into the ruling party strongholds. This is how they if somebody that never watches N1 or never reads Nedeljnik hears about Novak Djokovic, and Novak says, these students are really smart and we should support them and should support their professors, maybe that person is gonna think that not everything that they read in tabloids or see on their TV channels is true.
Well, my final question is, what's next after the Prime Minister resignation? What will happen next? What do you predict, Igor?
Well, I'm not sure that even Vučić knows what to do next. He's trying to calm down the situation. He is now calling the professors on dialogue. We will see tomorrow what will be their reaction on that, because he knows that students won't talk with him. But he is now on the way to form the new government with some people from his party. Or to call on the elections. But he knows that the election is not the way out, because nobody from the opposition will never accept it now, at least now in this situation. And they openly said it. And I think that anyone from the opposition who will say, okay, I will go on the election, will be completely dead in terms of their future. So the only solution for Vučić is now to make some provisional government from his people, and waiting to see what finally students will say, because now he is claiming that he will never accept any kind of expert government, which is one of the idea that is heading up from the student protest. I see that as the only solution of this. To be honest, this is a blocking of whole country right now. We have yesterday decision of the lawyers on a 30-day strike. So any single court in this country will be blocked. You cannot finish anything in the court because the lawyers are in strike. So this has to be finished or solved on some way. And the only solution is Vučić to accept what students really propose to him. And we are waiting to see what their proposal will be. Marko,
what's next for you?
Well, this is definitely the most serious challenge that this more and more autocratic leader had in the past 13 years. And I think if something is clear now, is that the change has to come from within. No one is going to wait for any allies or adversaries from outside countries to come and tell Serbian people what to do, especially these young people who are not falling for the same traps that I think the opposition parties might have fell into. So we'll just wait to see if on one hand if Vučić will appease students in any way, which he hasn't. So far, he hasn't shown that he can do that. And on the other hand, maybe of all these young people, maybe we'll have some new oppositions, some new ideas that we'll have after this provisional or expert government, or some next election will be much more interesting that they used to be.
Thank you, Igor. Thank you, Marko. One thing seems certain, that Serbia is at a historic inflection point. Then the outcome of this protest, this mass protest, could reshape the country's political and social landscape. Thank you very much for talking to Balkans Debrief. Let's keep this conversation going.
Thank you.